In the meantime here, we do want to bring into the conversation our friend, legal analyst and former federal prosecutor, Neama Rahmani, to help us make sense of this. Neama, good to see you. I feel like we haven't spoken in some time now that the conviction has come and gone here. But I guess my first question to you is, and maybe viewers have the same question, why is Trump still under the gag order post-conviction? He's already been convicted. Yes, we're waiting sentencing, but why is this still now partially in place?
A great question, Andrew, and you're right. We were talking on a daily basis. Things have slowed down a bit. But, I agree with you. And I think the answer to that question is really appellate courts have upheld these gag orders. We're seeing more and more very broad gag orders, not just in the Trump or other political legal cases, but even in cases like Brian Koberger, the Idaho murderer, or at least the accused Idaho murderer. In that case, the judge imposed a gag order even on the victims' families. They can't talk to the media just because they may be witnesses in the death penalty portion of the case. But I agree with you. The conviction has already occurred. There's no reason that Donald Trump, a candidate for president, should be barred from talking about witnesses in the case. I mean, let's not forget the reason that gag order was in place, so there would be no witness intimidation. Well,
Right.
Those witnesses have come and gone, so there's no reason for that to still be in place.
So for Trump, it's fair game now to go after Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels without violation of a gag order here? I mean, is that what's going to happen?
Absolutely, and they should be fair game because there's no reason to muzzle Donald Trump anymore because there's no coercion, there's no threats, there's no intimidation. So he should be able to criticize them and the result in this case. That's absolutely his right. And I do believe that after sentencing on July 11th, the remaining portion of the gag order will also be lifted. Trump will be free to criticize the prosecution, the court staff. There's no reason to keep it in place. The only part of the gag order, really only that should continue indefinitely, is juror anonymity. They have a right not to be outed and to be doxxed, but the rest of it should go by the wayside because the trial is already concluded.
But if you're Judge Juan Merchan and you partially lift it today, why not just lift the whole thing? I mean, this is a matter of weeks we're talking about until the sentence.
I would have. If you're a prosecutor, you got to wear your big boy or girl pants. I mean, that's part of the job, to be criticized by folks that you're putting in jail. So I don't see the need to protect them like you would a lay witness or a juror that really doesn't choose to be part of our criminal justice system.
Yeah, so Trump's lawyers had requested that Justice Juan Merchan retract the gag order entirely, saying it violates Trump's First Amendment rights and is no longer necessary in the wake of Trump's conviction there in late May. So that was Trump's attorney's arguments today, and Judge Juan Merchan giving them a partial victory in this. Neama, you mentioned the jurors and their anonymity thus far. Are you surprised that we don't know any of these 12 jurors yet, almost a month after the conviction? Is that unusual?
It is unusual. You would expect one of them to go on the talk show circuit, to start writing a book, and maybe that will still happen, but that's what we've seen for these high profile cases because people want to know the discussions behind the scenes, and we really haven't seen that. Now, obviously, as a prosecutor, that's the last thing you want to hear because you're always concerned that the jurors may say or do something that may compromise the verdict. So I'm surprised, but maybe it's the highly politicized nature of this case, probably the most politicized trial in American history, and folks, frankly, are scared and they don't want to deal with the potential political fallout of outing themselves.
I see. We are very close to sentencing. Have you read any tea leaves to suggest that we can divine what it might be brought by the judge? What are you hearing and what are you thinking? And if you're thinking something now, was it different than when we last spoke?
Andrew, I firmly believe that Donald Trump will be sentenced to probation. I can't see any circumstance where he's incarcerated. We've talked about the logistical challenges of that. Even home confinement during a presidential election doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And the tea leaves are that Trump violated that gag order 10 times, and those were willful violations, and Judge Juan Merchan wasn't willing to imprison him then, not even in the jail, in the courthouse for some short period of time. So I don't think any custody is going to happen. And frankly, under the New York sentencing guidelines for a nonviolent offender, first-time offender, for a Class E felony like this, not drug-related, it does allow for no jail time or probation. I think that's exactly what Donald Trump will get in this case.
Okay, Neema, while we have you, we want to move from New York to Atlanta. We got some news today. Lawyers for former President Trump have filed an appeal to Fulton County Superior Court calling for the complete dismissal of the indictment in the election interference case and disqualification of District Attorney Fani Willis. We know that appeal is already being heard on the disqualification question regarding Fani Willis and her improper relationship with Nathan Wade. Now Trump's attorneys want a dismissal of the case outright. So this is now working its way at the appellate level there in Georgia, in Fulton County. Yet another wrinkle in Trump's legal saga here. What do you make of these developments?
Well, the best defense is always a good offense. And in this case, the prosecution is really on the run. I've been critical of Fani Willis, both in terms of how she charged the case. She waited too long to charge 19 co-defendants in a case that really has been ground to a halt because of these procedural maneuvers. But hiring your boyfriend, and we talked about these politicized cases, and paying them when he probably wasn't the most qualified person. And then you got this unnecessary sideshow and this circus. And now you have an appeal, not only with respect to your disqualification, but really what we call outrageous government conduct. And judges do have a right to dismiss cases when prosecutors overstep. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened here. I don't think it rises to that level. But whenever you're even having to answer these types of filings, you've done something wrong as a prosecutor.
Okay, Neema, we're going to switch gears here. We're going to move off the Trump legal cases. We're going to talk about another conviction you and I recently discussed that, of course, has to do with President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, there on those 3 felony gun charges. We're learning this today, Neema. This is from Kyle Cheney. With the order, Hunter Biden's law license has been suspended there in D.C. Is this run-of-the-mill if you're convicted, that this is the normal course, that this happens if you have a law license anywhere, you get suspended or disbarred? Is that the normal course of things?
That is, Andrew. If you're convicted of a felony, and I'm licensed in California, Arizona, Nevada, and it doesn't matter. If I'm convicted of a felony, especially a firearm and drug-related federal felony, I'm going to lose my license. So maybe after I complete my sentence and probation, I can apply for reinstatement. But but generally speaking, as a lawyer, you have to self-report any criminal activity and certainly a criminal prosecution and conviction. So it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. I mean, law licenses can and will be suspended for this type of conduct.
So is a suspension of a law license the same as a disbarment?
Not quite. A suspension is for some period of time. So if Hunter Biden wants to practice law, let's forget he went to Yale Law School. He, at some point, was an accomplished lawyer before things went south. And obviously, his substance abuse issues are well documented. But, it's not just this case, the tax crimes case. And that, for a lawyer, is even worse. Anything involving fraud or moral turpitude, I mean, those are things that the state bars of any state look down upon. So I'm not surprised that Hunter Biden lost his license and is probably going to lose it for good.
All right. And there's so much news on that case as well. Hunter Biden's attorneys, just as of this week, are trying to get a new trial. They're also trying to get the indictment thrown out as they appeal the conviction. We brought some of those reports to our viewers. And that's all in addition to the other trial, like you mentioned, on the tax evasion charges happening in Los Angeles later this fall in September. So the problems for Hunter Biden not over nearly anytime soon. Neama Rahmani, thanks so much for your time. We'll talk soon.
Of course. Thanks, Andrew.
All right. In the meantime here, let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to keep it moving.